All right, so we're going to continue a little bit on Tes Vav Amud Beis, the second part of today's daf. So we began the sugya of Erev Tafshilin, the ability to go ahead and begin preparations on Erev Yom Tiv, which are then continued on Yom Tiv for the purpose of preparing food for Shabbos. So we left off on Tes Vav Amud Beis 15b. So the Gemara says, V'tani ma'isila mehacha. It is 2, 4, 6, 7 lines down in the wide lines. V'tana ma'isila mehacha. So another Tana goes ahead and brings the source for Erev Tafshilin from a different pasuk. Eis asher tofu afu, ve'eis asher tevashlu bashelu, which literally means that which you will bake, and that which you will cook. Mikan Amar Belazar. From here, Rabbi Elazar said, "Ein ofen ella al ha'afui, vein mevashen ella ala mavushal," which literally means, again, you could only bake based on something that is already baked, and only cook based on something that is already cooked. We'll see what this means. If you look at Rashi says over here as follows: Eis asher tafu afu, havelei lemichtav hayom afu ubashlu, ela remes hu sheish lechayom shishi she'in ofen l'tzorech machar. So the idea over here is, what the Rabbi Elazar is picking up on, is the pasuk could have just said, bake and cook on Erev Shabbos for Shabbos. So it's interesting because the way he's dashing the pasuk is Eis asher tofu. Essentially, if you've baked, you could continue to bake. If you've cooked, you could continue to cook. What does this mean? What does that refer to? Mikan amru samchu chachamim le'eruvei tafshilin min haTorah. Ultimately, again, so based on this pasuk, Chazal understood Erev Tafshilin, meaning what? That Chazal understood that the pasuk is talking about a situation over here where, in order to prepare for Shabbos, the preparation must have already started at some prior time. So what's the situation where, in order to prepare for Shabbos, you have to have started at some prior time? Elamai, that's Erev Tafshilin. So we'll say, so to be clear, everyone is agreeing that, of course, Erev Tafshilin is a rabbinic innovation. Right? That's clear. The shayla that the Gemara is just trying to clear over here is, what pasuk seems to support this concept of Erev Tafshilin. The mechanics are the same, which is that halacha l'mais, although we saw machlokas as to why Erev Tafshilin works, but remember, the idea for us is as follows. The goal here is to ensure that we don't prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbos, because the act of preparing on Yom Tov for Shabbos may be problematic. Whether it's problematic midaraisa, whether it's problematic midirabanan, it is problematic. So what does Erev Tafshilin do? We begin the process of cooking. We'll discuss cooking, baking in tomorrow's daf, but we begin the process of food preparation on Erev Yom Tov. So for example, let's say where Yom Tov is Friday, going into Shabbos. So we would make the Erev on Thursday, Erev Yom Tov. What we do is we begin the Shabbos preparations on Chol, on a weekday. That way, whatever I end up doing on Friday is not considered to be an act of Yom Tov preparation for Shabbos, but rather it's considered to be an extension of the weekday preparation. The preparation I began on Thursday, weekday preparation, continuing that into Shabbos, and of course, that is mutter. So Gemara tells a story. Rabbi Eliezer was giving a shiur in the Beis Medrash on Hilchos Yom Tiv. So what happens? Apparently, the shiur was going on for a while. Rashi points out over here, Yom Tiv. So even the Gemara itself says that he was going ahead and Dorish Kol Hayom Kulo. It was a long drasha. It was a long shiur. So what happens? He's giving the shiur, and the first group of people get up to leave the Beis Medrash. And Rabbi Eliezer was upset. Amru halalu ba'alei patasin. These people are clearly owners of barrels. So this is a reference Rashi points out over here. Ba'alei patasin hechavios kidolos echino lahem. So umasach mishtaos. So he says essentially they own a lot of wine. So because they own a lot of wine, they have a lot to drink over Yom Tiv. So they have so much to drink that they can't stay for the shiur. They have to go ahead and begin drinking. Kashnia, the second group of people, got up to leave. Amr halalu ba'alei chavios. These guys, they don't own barrels, but they own kegs. So they don't own as much wine, as much alcohol, but they have kegs of alcohol. Again, getting upset that they're leaving the Beis Medrash to go ahead and partake of their Yom Tov Suda. Kashlishis, the third group, gets up. Amr halalu ba'alei kadin. These guys, they don't own barrels, they don't own kegs, but they own jugs. So what he was saying is essentially, the later they were leaving, they have to go drink, but clearly they have less to drink. Kas Revius, the fourth group gets up. Amru halalu ba'ali leginin. These guys, they only have flasks. That's why they're leaving now. Kas Chamishes, the fifth group got up. Amru halalu ba'ali kosos. They just own cups of wine. His schilu kas shlishes lotzes. The sixth group was getting ready to. They were leaving in shifts. The sixth group gets up and gets ready to leave. Amru halalu ba'ali me'era. These individuals, Ba'ali me'era, are literally again responsible for destruction or for desolation. Now, what's interesting is Rabbi Eliezer was clearly much more severe in his judgment of the sixth group. Why? So Rashi points out over here, Halalu ba'alei me'ira, sheya beis hamedrash misroknon ma'od uginai hadar v'kash shabena. This is very interesting. By the time the sixth group was getting ready to leave, they were getting up, the Beis Medrash was pretty much empty. So it's interesting. It's one thing if you leave the Beis Medrash and there's a lot of people there. It's one thing if you leave and there are other chaburas there. Okay, it's not good to leave. But Lamaisa, you're not leaving the Beis Medrash empty. By the time this sixth group was ready to leave, the Beis Medrash was pretty much empty. So Rabbi Eliezer was very upset. Rabbi Eliezer was very upset, and he felt, to leave a shiur is a lack of derech eretz to begin with. For Rabbi Eliezer, for Rabbi Eliezer, it was a lack of derech eretz for the talmidim to leave the shiur. But to leave the shiur in a way that's even more noticeable, more discernible, leaves the Beis Medrash empty, then you're responsible for the desolation of Torah. Very strong. So what happened? Nasan einav betalmidim. So what happens? He began to look at the group who remained. Right? There was a small chevra, and Rabbi Eliezer began to look at this group. So what happened? His schilu pnei mishtanin. They began to turn pale because they thought that he was going to be angry at them as well. In other words, he had expressed his frustration at every group. Group 1, Group 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now there's the remaining chevra in the Beis Medrash. He looks towards them and he looks upset. So they get upset, they get fearful that the Rebbe is going to be upset with them. Amar lahem banai, says, no, my sons, lo lachem ani omer. Ela lahalalu sheyatzu. I'm not upset at you. I'm not upset at you at all. At all. So what happens? I'm only upset at the groups that left. Shemanichim chaye olam va'oskim b'chaye shah. A very profound statement. Why was Rabbi Eliezer upset? So you might have thought when you read the story, maybe it's his ego. Right? Maybe he's upset. I'm giving the shiur, I'm giving the drush, I prepared so hard, and now you're leaving. He wasn't upset for his kavod. He was upset because he felt that they had a flawed hierarchy of needs or value system. That here we're learning Torah, chaye olam, eternal life. And how can you go ahead and leave behind the Torah to engage in physical celebration? Sure, the wine is good, the beer is good, the meat is good, everything is wonderful, but I'm giving you eternal life in Torah, and yet you're forsaking all of that to run out and to embrace temporal, physical pleasure and enjoyment. How can you do that? B'shas Petirasa, when the shiur was over and the remaining chevra was leaving the Beis Medrash, Rabbi Eliezer said to them, Amar lahem, L'chu, Ichlu mishmanu v'shasum amtakim v'sholchu manos la'in nachon lo ki kadosh hayom la'adonenu di'al ta'atzu ki chedvas Hashem hi ma'oschem. So very beautifully, he blessed them with the pasuk from Nehemiah, where Nehemiah says to them, go and eat of your food, drink of your sweet items, send gifts to one another without number, for the day is sanctified la'adonenu, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ta'atzvu, do not be sad, ki chedvas Hashem hi ma'oschem. The joy of Hashem will be your strength. So again, Rabbi Eliezer recognized you can't learn the whole day. You have to go and enjoy your Suda. But to that last chevra that remained in the Beis Medrash till the end of the shiur, he gave them a special bracha. Amar Mar, Shemanichin chaye olam va'oskim b'chaye shah. So Mar said, what does that mean? That they're going ahead and they're leaving behind. They're leaving behind chaye olam, right? Eternal life Torah, and just engaging in temporal pleasure. Vasimchas Yom Tov mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to rejoice on Yom Tov. We'll see. Vasamachta b'chagecha. There's a mitzvah to rejoice. So it's not like they're going out to the pub, they're going out to the bar, they're just going out just stam to eat a meal. Chas v'shalom. It's a sudas Yom Tov. There's a mitzvah to rejoice on Yom Tov. Rabbi Eliezer letamei da'amar simchas Yom Tov rishus. And Rabbi Eliezer goes according to his opinion because Rabbi Eliezer holds that halacha l'maisa, the rejoicing on Yom Tov is not a mitzvah, rather it is a rishus. It is an optional pursuit. So we'll say we'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up in Mir Tzashem. Well, actually, let's finish. Desanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Ein lo la'adam Yom Tov ela o ocha v'shosa yoshe v'shona. Rabbi Eliezer has an interesting model. Rabbi Eliezer says that on Yom Tov you have to choose. You have to choose. Do you want to devote yourself to spiritual pursuits or to physical material pursuits? That is the choice. You have to decide how to designate your Yom Tov. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Chalkeyu. Rabbi Eliezer says, no, you could split the day. Chatziyav la'Hashem, v'chatziyav lachem. Half of the day goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, half of the day goes for your physical enjoyment. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ushneim Mikra Echad Darshu. They both went ahead and darshan the same pasuk. Kasav Echad Omer, Atzeres LaHashem Elokecha. One pasuk says that Yom Tov should be for Hashem your God. V'kasav Echad Omer, Atzeres Tia Lachem. And one pasuk says Yom Tov should be for you. So which one is it? Is Yom Tov for you? Is Yom Tov for Hashem? HaKeitzad. Rabbi Eliezer Savar, Okula LaHashem, Okula Lachem. Rabbi Eliezer understands that at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving you a choice. You could choose one of two paradigms. Either make Yom Tov about you or make Yom Tov about me. That's the choice. That's the choice. Rabbi Yeshua Savar, Chalkeyu, Chatziyav LaHashem, V'chatziyav Lachem. Whereas Rabbi Yeshua says, no, split the day, half of the day to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, half of the day to you. Ultimately, again, a combination. It's really an incredible thing. We'll talk about this more in tomorrow's daf. But this notion that Rabbi Eliezer holds, O kula laHashem, O kula lachem, represents almost a hashkafas hachayim of black and white. Person has to decide which world they're going to live in. Is a person going to live in the world of laHashem or lachem? Again, we'll discuss how anyone can make a decision like that, because doesn't life always have to be a synthesis, right? Doesn't life always have to be a combination? Which is why ultimately, again, the position of Rabbi Yoshua seems so much more intuitive. Chalkuo, chatziyav la'Hashem, v'chatziyav lachem. Half of it is for me, half of it is for Hashem. Isn't that not just Yom Tov, but isn't that ultimately the paradigm for life? Isn't that ultimately what it is? Furthermore, how could Rabbi Eliezer actually be saying Kula Hashem? What does that mean? That you're supposed to spend the entire day of Yom Tov ultimately again in the Beis Medrash and not enjoying the Sudas Yom Tov and not partaking of any physical pleasures? So again, we'll frame the machlokes today in Meretz Hashem. So the machlokes we'll see is not just the machlokes by Yom Tov, but perhaps even a machlokes in hashkafas hachayim. That at the end of the day, how is one supposed to live life? Is life an either or? Of either I serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or ultimately again I focus on my own needs? Or is life ultimately this synthesis of the two? So we'll stop over here for today. Look forward to Meretz Hashem learning tomorrow's daf together with you on Yom Kippur, B'Sha'ah Tova U'Mitzlachos, and wishing everyone a Gemar Chasima Tova.